Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for market intelligence, forecasts, and strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Bull. Thanks for joining us on one of the radio stations around the country, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube or the show website, commercialrealestateshow.com. Well, we have a very informative show for you today. I've been really looking forward to this. We're going to talk about the CRE top 10 issues affecting real estate. Please welcome my guest, Peter Burley. He is a research executive. He's also an author, and he's committee chair of the Counselors of Real Estate External Affairs Committee. Now, the CRE Counselors are an incredible group of people. I've met several of them, and they know what they're talking about in commercial real estate. Their group is, well, it's hard to get in. I'll let Peter tell you a little bit more about it. Peter, thanks for joining us here in Studio One.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
Tell us about CRE Counselors first, if you will.
Real Estate is a professional organization, consists of about 1,100 members worldwide. It's an invitation-only organization. You got to have the creds, but they are some of the best and the brightest in the industry. The most experienced, the most knowledgeable people. They're also the most generous with their thoughts, words, and deeds.
And their time. We appreciate you being here. And so you guys put out this report every year, kind of put your heads together and come up with the top 10 issues affecting real estate. And let's get right to them with number 10. So we're doing the David Letterman style here, right?
That'll work.
Start with number 10 and go down to number 1. Number 10 is the rise of experiential retail. Tell us about that, Peter.
Right. Now, we've had this list, by the way, for the last 5 years or so. And the change in the retail model has been on that list for a number of years. What we've noticed is a transition, not just from the dilapidated suburban mall, but where property owners and retailers are moving toward a more experiential destination for the consumer. So you have a place where there are showrooms, there are entertainment places, there are gathering spaces, restaurants, not just food courts, but actual restaurants that draw people to that location, and then feed the retailers as they experience the space. A lot of clicks and bricks now. We know that, for instance, a recent survey by BRC KPMG just showed globally that online sales comprised about 21% of all retail.
Wow.
Yeah. And we didn't know this.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's 9 or 10%, but it's
Right.
actually 21%. That's 1/5 of all retail sales are online. So the retailers are responding by shrinking the actual floor space and the inventory that they're keeping in the stores, but adding an online component to their offering. So it's clicks and bricks.
So they still need that brick presence, right?
Absolutely. Don't you want to touch and feel the Tesla before you buy it?
Yes, I do.
Right.
Yeah, I want to hear it too. I can't hear it.
And that Tesla model is actually a major component, the newer kind of retail. You go to the showroom, you see 2 cars, but you're not going to drive away with one of them. You're going to choose the design you want and the options that you want to place into it, and then some weeks later, you're going to get your new car. But you're not actually buying the car on site.
Right. And that gives some opportunities too to some of the local tenants to create a draw, right, for the experience?
Absolutely. Local retailers are becoming a very big thing. There are 2 really interesting components to this. One is that the local retailers, the mom and pops, but they're specialty stores that are indigenous, as you will, to the location where they are. And then, in addition to that, there's this whole change in the definition of what an anchor store is for the mall. We've heard that in Europe, restaurants are becoming anchors to the shopping mall. So we're redefining who's in those spaces and how they're operating and what they offer to their consumers.
Right, and why they might be considered an anchor too is because they are bringing the people there, right? that are going to stop in these stores, and maybe they go in the store and buy online at the store, right?
Right,
But
absolutely.
They go in,
Or they, they try on the garment, but then they go home and they buy it online. And people do this anyway.
Right.
So, but now retailers are responding to that by making it easier for that to happen.
Right. And if you're watching this on the show website or on YouTube, then you're seeing some of these bullets in our charts. But if you're listening to the podcast or one of the radio stations around the country, you're not. And one of the bullets is interesting to me is opportunity in secondary and tertiary markets because of this experiential retail. Tell us about that.
Well, we know, first of all, that if you're a retail investor, you're going to be searching for yield in the secondaries and tertiaries
Right,
anyway.
that's where the yield is.
But it also, it gives impetus, it helps stimulate the economy in those smaller markets where they might not otherwise have those kinds of economic development opportunities.
Okay, because people might just be shopping online, but if they can get people out for an experience, they're shopping in the area.
They're shopping in the
Yeah,
area.
well, that
Exactly.
makes sense. Well, I'm going to get to number 9. Number 9, the sharing virtual economy.
Ah, yes. Well, this one's, now everybody knows about Uber, and everybody knows about Lyft, and I don't know if you have them in Atlanta, but Divvy bikes, where you basically can pick up a bike and ride it around town and then bring it back when you're done.
Do I have to keep balance? Does it have training wheels?
No, well,
Does it have a motor?
please wear a helmet. That's all I ask.
Okay.
But also, in addition to that, zip cars, for instance, the short-term rental for a zip car. You get off your train. I know that I can do this. My home near Chicago, I can get off the train, walk to the zip car, drive off. I've already reserved it. Go do my grocery shopping, then take the car back, then walk home, if I wanted to do that. And then we have Airbnb, which has begun to change the face of the lodging industry as well as travel and leisure in general, where private owners are offering their space, their dwelling, as a lodging space. So these are changing the dynamic in parts of the economy. They also offer basically temporary employment for people who are not finding work elsewhere. So it becomes almost a shadow economy, and it grows out of the recession period and the difficulties of of finding a job in somewhat of a tepid employment market. So, but that changes, for instance, Airbnb changes the hotel space. And if you're a hotel owner, what are you going to do? You're going to compete with Airbnb?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're going to change your model to mirror the Airbnb model. I can think of a number of hotels in downtown Chicago that have actually said, let's consider maybe changing some of the rooms into small apartments that people can rent as Airbnb style.
So
lodging.
they're taking notice of the competition.
They are taking notice of the
Okay.
competition.
And then the sharing of vehicles and the Ubers and that sort of thing, how's that impacting, say, office properties? Parking.
Well, it might change the parking
Yeah.
requirement a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, zoning officials haven't really taken notice yet.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that down the road that won't impact the parking requirement that you have when you develop a new building.
Right.
So there is that as well. And in addition to these sharing components that we know about, Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, there's also the virtual office and office sharing as well. So we know that there are places that you can be a business without necessarily holding that space in a lease or in a permanent way.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and we're short on the break, but what do you think about that impacting the office market? It seems like we're squeezing more people in less square footage every day.
Well, we are. And I think the office sector is changing dramatically as a result of demographics, as a result of technology, and as a result of some of these new entities that are entering the market. But office owners are responding in kind, and they will adjust.
Right, right. Well, stay with us. We're talking with Peter Burley about the top 10 issues affecting real estate. And we're going to get down to number 8 next. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's a big one. And you might be surprised by number 7. Stay with us. We'll get down to the top number 1. We'll have the drum roll. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by your friends at Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, visit bullrealty.com or call 800-408-BULL. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and you're listening or watching the Commercial Real Estate Show. Today we're talking with Peter Burley with the Counselors of Real Estate, and we're talking about their top 10 issues affecting real estate. And Peter, number 8 is energy. I know I could use more energy. How's energy impacting commercial real estate today?
Actually, energy's been on our list for a few years now. A couple of years ago, it was a boom story. You know, let's all dive into the energy sector and watch the boom in North Dakota and Houston and elsewhere. And now it's not so much a boom story as it is a volatility story. At the beginning of the year, we saw oil prices sag to their lowest, and almost as long as I can remember. And one expert I know told me that the actual rig count in the U.S. for extracting oil was at its lowest level in 50 years.
Wow.
This has a huge impact on the regional economies that depend on energy production, particularly in oil and natural gas. Places like Houston and places like North Dakota, which, you know, the oil shale boom that happened up there has become an oil shale, well, almost a bust.
So they're the losers. Who's the winners?
Well, right now, nobody.
Nobody, yeah.
Because when a key commodity like this becomes unstable and volatile, it threatens really the political stability, economic stability globally.
Yeah.
And when you see Saudi Arabian debt being downgraded because oil prices are that low. Now, we are seeing some recovery, but that, to me, right now, looks like volatility.
Yeah.
In fact, it's 100% over its low as of yesterday, I believe. Price of oil, I think, was back up to $51 a barrel. But it puts pressure on those markets that have depended on it.
Yeah.
And it puts pressure on investors who are thinking of developing or investing in those markets, like
Right.
Houston and North Dakota.
Right. It's something to really take into account when you're doing that. And then let's look at number 7, the disappearing middle class. Now, are they disappearing because they're becoming poor?
Well, partly, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
We know that wages in real terms are down roughly 5%, I believe.
I guess I'm laughing about myself. I'm going from middle class to poor.
Well, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
No, we know that wages are down on a real basis over the last 15 years in such a way that the middle class wage has become so stagnant, people are actually falling down through the ladder rather than climbing up. We know that median wealth, for instance, has fallen 28% since the housing market crisis.
Wow.
Now, of course, a lot of that has to do with home values, right? But that's very hard on a middle class family when their wealth is that low. And then we have the one income versus two income family. It used to be when I was growing up, when my father was the breadwinner. He was, it was a one income household. Then we went to a few two income households, and they were doing pretty well. But two-parent homes with kids under 18 fell from 72% single income to 37% single income over a period of 40 years. And now 60% of households have two incomes. Well, what does that mean? It means less opportunity in the middle market. It's influenced the retail side. The middle market retailers, Sears, Macy's, Penny's was under a lot of stress. Those have suffered some. And we know that the housing market itself suffers when people can't afford or don't feel that they can afford to buy a new home.
Right. Well, I think I'm gonna go back to like the old farming days where even my children I put to work. I want a 4-income family.
Yeah, I tried that. It didn't work well for me.
All right, let's look at number 6, housing affordability, as you were just talking about, and credit constraints.
Right. And this one has been bubbling up, not just in the U.S., it's actually been bubbling up in Europe as well. There are such low inventories of available housing for sale that's pushed pricing way up. And it's been outstripping wage growth, which we just talked about, to the point where people cannot afford to buy homes in many markets. San Francisco is a perfect example, where I grew up in the Bay Area, and the median price for a home in my hometown is $1.2 million. Now, I can't afford that. I'm sorry, I just don't have the cash today.
That's what you're telling your wife anyway.
That's what I keep telling her. But in addition to that, though, are the credit constraints. And there's been a considerable swing back to such tight credit that people are not qualifying. And there's been damage to their credit scores because of one thing or another over time. They're having a hard time qualifying for that mortgage to buy the house. So you've got two very strong forces making it very difficult for people to actually get into those homes.
Yeah, and one of your bullets, if you're in the radio, you're not seeing them, but was the opportunity for micro apartments and mixed use. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, part of the problem, in addition to the home ownership side, is the rental side. And rents have been just roaring over the past couple of years.
Sure have.
And now they're starting to exceed those incomes as well. It's very hard to qualify for an apartment to rent. In some markets, your income ratio to rent is, or the rent to income is like over 50% or more. And that's not sustainable over time. So let's make some more affordable apartments for people, particularly those millennials who want to live in the center city, in urban areas. They don't want to stay home all the time anyway.
Right.
So give them 500 square feet or less at an affordable rent, and give them gathering spaces where they can meet with their friends, either in the building or beyond.
Yeah, and some of those apartments are really small, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen them at 200 square feet.
Yeah. So do you think because of this affordability issue that the apartment market will stay strong, the demand will be there?
The demand is going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
There's just no doubt about that. The question is, what can rents do over time? And we are starting to see a plateau in rents. I just read a report yesterday that rents were rising at an annual rate of about 3.9, I believe, nationally. That's as opposed to +5 and +6 over the last couple of years.
And what's it mean, Peter, for the housing market for developers there?
Well, you know, developers are actually starting to look at other options. One of those options is to go back to those developments which were starter homes. Yeah. Let's build 1,200, 1,500 square foot starter homes, 3-in-1s, with a kitchen and appliances, and a small lot, and make that part of the market again, which it just hasn't been for a long time.
At least you call that four holes in a door or something. Just your basic house, right?
Right, exactly. It's the house that, heck, I started out, I won't tell you back when, but starter home is not a bad place to start. Yeah,
well, my first home was a triplex, so a 3-unit home, and my portion was a 1-bedroom apartment, and I loved it, And that's all I could afford. I needed the rents from the other units to actually pay the mortgage. I'm glad no one moved out. I'd have been in trouble. Well, stay tuned. We'll have more on the top 10 issues affecting commercial real estate with Peter Burley. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. Xceligent, the resource professionals like CCIMs, CBRE, JLL, Colliers, and Bull Realty use for market intelligence. Commercial Search is the site to market and find available properties to buy, sell, or lease all over the country. Visit commercialsearch.com. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and you're watching or listening to the Commercial Real Estate Show. We're talking with Peter Burley from the Counselors of Real Estate about their top 10 issues affecting real estate. I wanted to say commercial real estate, but this is affecting all of real estate. And number 5 is the political environment. Tell us about that.
I wish I didn't have to. It's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the way things are today. Actually, the acrimony, the discontent politically is actually a global thing right now. They just had elections in Austria, which were very intense. And Britain is deciding in about 10 days whether it's going to stay in the EU. And that's a very contentious battle. And then, of course, we have our own national political circus.
Circus, yeah.
But it's at all levels. It's global and it's national, but it's also local, and a lot of local environments. And this is where real estate really gets impacted. I mean, all politics is local, so is real estate, right? So there are communities that are having difficulty making decisions and also paying for those decisions. So the tax environment, which can either attract or repel a business or even a consumer looking to live in that area. So we know that that's going to have a big impact on where people live, where people do business, whether the infrastructure in that community can support new businesses and people moving into those communities. Chicago is a great example of this, having a very hard time, almost as hard as Congress has, to make decisions and then to actually pay for those decisions.
Yeah.
We live with that in Chicago every day. So the politics is local and the real estate is local, has real impact, and not all communities are necessarily finding their way out of the maze, as it were.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think you always think of political unrest or the political environment when you're talking about investing in a country. But like you said, you really want to look at the local politics and see what's going on. Right. Well, let's look at number 4, densification, urbanization. I guess we've all seen some of that.
Well, absolutely. And actually, we've had urbanization on our list for a number of years as well. But what we're really talking about is a re-densifying, as it were, of where people live and where people are doing business and where people are shopping and playing. So urban centers, we know, they attract the businesses, partly because the people are there, but they also attract the people because the work is there, the retail that they want is there, the entertainment they want is there. Usually public transportation is available. There's a walkability factor. And we know that people are moving into the cities in huge numbers. Globally, it's I can't remember the percentage, but I think it's roughly 80%.
And it's interesting because you used to think of people becoming well-to-do and then moving out of town.
Right. But then they have a commute, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Now they want to be in town, right, and be around everyone. Even baby boomers, my age, and even me, I'm interested in living in a live-work urban environment. I mean,
sure.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is,
and
actually.
It's easy.
It's a lot of fun. But the thing is, then you're competing with the millennials who want to be there and anybody else.
Well, they better like Beatles music or
or Arlo Guthrie. But we know that the 24-hour city is really the dynamic place where businesses and people want to be. And this isn't to say that the suburb is necessarily going to die. A lot of people have rung the death knell for suburbs. But actually what we're seeing is that suburbs are urbanizing themselves. They're densifying.
They're becoming more dense.
They are. And they're doing that for very good reason, because it's attractive and people want to be there, and businesses as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So where are there opportunities related to this?
Well, In terms of the densification, it's going to be ongoing, but infill in and around the urban core has become a very hot commodity. So if you can find an infill space and make the place, you're going to be very successful in all likelihood. We've noticed this in the West Loop in Chicago, which has been basically densified and redeveloped into a destination area with lots of restaurants, lots of shops, lots of places to live. And we've seen it in the Domain, a mixed-use development in North Austin, which has retail on the ground floor and some traditional retailers. It also has the clicks and bricks stores like Tesla. And then it has beautiful park settings for people to gather. And you can sit at a restaurant on the terrace and watch the children play in the park. I mean, it's that elegant.
Yeah, well, that's nice, and that's a great environment. Well, stay with us. We're going to have the top three issues impacting real estate. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Valuate. Easily share what-if analysis online with colleagues. Visit getvaluate.com. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by First Service Solutions, the CMBS Borrower Advocate. Visit 1stsss.com. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We're talking with Peter Burley, the counselors of real estate, about their top 10 issues affecting real estate. And we're getting now to the top three. We're at number 3, demographic shifts. It's a big one. It's easy for me to say, right? Right.
Demographic shifts. And actually, this one's been on our list, I think, all the way through, as long as we've been doing these top 10 every year. The fact of the matter is, millennials now have overtaken the boomers in terms of population growth. Boomers
Those
are
scoundrels.
Well, we're also in decline, Michael. So, but still, the millennials and the boomers combined make up more than half the population in the United States, and that's huge numbers. It's more than 150 million people, and because the millennials are starting to move into real life, many of them are actually starting households. Many of them are actually leaving their parents' basements, but not many yet. There is a little bit of a conflict between boomer spaces and millennial spaces, which presents some opportunities that we can talk about. But boomers are retiring, rate of about 10,000 per day. And at the same time, the number of people over 90 is growing so fast that I think it's tripled since 1980, and by 2040, they'll represent in the neighborhood of 15% of the population.
Wow.
I'd have to look at the number exactly, but it's something like that. So these large demographic cohorts have needs. They need housing, they need places to work, they need places to shop, work, and play, all that. And that's where real estate comes in and recognizes how to serve those needs. One of them, of course, and we've talked about, the urban environment or the urbanization of the suburbs, those environments where people can have the walkable communities. My millennial daughter does not have a car. She does not want a car. She wants public transportation. She wants to be able to walk out of her apartment, get on a bus or a train, go to her office, go to work. The office looks different too, by the way. And then we've talked about the retail and how that's changing. And then we have the elder services for those aging boomers. Many of us are going to have some needs as we grow older. And that presents opportunities really for aging services, whether those are medical facilities, medical office, assisted living. As much as the boomers want to deny it, and as much as they would rather age in place, we probably are going to have those same needs that our parents did. maybe at an older age, but we're still going to need them.
Right. And we're definitely going to need more health care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're beating our bodies terribly.
Well, we beat them up when we were young.
All right, well, let's get to number 2, debt capital market retrenchment.
Right. This one has been slowly emerging over the last, I would say, year, maybe 6 months in particular, largely because the risk retention rules go into effect next month, unless there's legislation to change that from the Dodd-Frank bill. There is legislation going through Congress, but it's been very, very slow to reduce those risk retentions, to offer qualified mortgage status for certain debt instruments. But we really do consider that the pace of lending is probably going to slow for the remainder of this year.
Is that for just new development, or is that for even existing?
Construction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. New construction is probably going to see a pullback at least. The banks have been told, and they represent about half of that lending pool. They've been told you might want to reduce your exposure there. CMBS is troubled right now. They're a little floppy because of the risk retention rules. And even the insurance companies who are out there, in a relatively strong presence, but they're slowly beginning to reach their allocation levels. So we're probably going to see some pullback a little bit for at least the remainder of this year.
Right. And where there's challenges, there's opportunities, right?
There are. I mean, if you can find some unregulated, non-traditional lenders, go for it.
Right, right. And one of those is crowdfunding, right?
Absolutely. Crowdfunding is one of those interesting new sort of shadow economy trends, but crowdfunding has become now significant enough so that the regulators are actually starting to look at it. Yeah. But it's very small right now. But yeah.
Yeah, we had Steve Reno from CRE Finance on, and he talked about even some of the larger banks looking at crowdfunding. I'm like, this could grow faster than a lot of people are thinking.
Well, if they can raise the limits to what crowdfunding allocations can be, that might make it more attractive to some people. Yeah.
Right, right. So where are some other opportunities with debt capital markets? I mean, we need our money. What about interest rates? What do you guys think about interest rates?
At the beginning of the year, we thought, the interest rate environment's really going to actually get back to like normal.
The new normal?
A new normal, whatever that new normal might be. I mean, rates right now are still very, very attractive. Yeah. But at the time, at the end of last year, at the beginning of this year, it seemed likely that rates were going to start rising. And they stopped.
Yeah. All right, well, stay with us. We're going to get to the number 1 issue affecting real estate right after this break. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Stay with us. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by CCIM Institute, Commercial Real Estate's global standard for professional achievement. Visit ccim.com/CRE show. That's ccim.com/CRE show. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Today we're talking with Peter Burley. He's the Counselors of Real Estate Committee Chair on their report, CRE Top 10 Issues Affecting Real Estate. And we are now, drumroll please, at number 1. Whatever that sounds like, right? Number 1, the changing global economy. Tell us about that, Peter.
Well, it's changing. It's uncertain. It's slowing. The IMF has just revised all of its GDP growth estimates globally by 0.5% or so, which is a significant amount for IMF global forecast. The National Association for Business Economists just did the same thing, basically saying that in 2016, we'll probably see about 1.8% GDP growth. Next year, maybe about 2.3. That's a downshift from what we were expecting coming into the year.
Yeah.
But with all of the global deceleration, all of the global uncertainties, all political as well as economic, the U.S. is still like the most attractive place in the world to invest. And while there's been some uncertainty here as well, the capital is still looking to find places to go.
You're right.
Secondary and tertiary markets in particular in the U.S., where the yields are higher, the opportunities seem to be popping up.
Yeah. And I think the guy driving down the road in his car might think that if real estate's local, how does the world economy really impact the U.S.? But it's kind of shrunk, hasn't it? We're impacted by what's going on all around the world here.
Absolutely, we are. Yeah. We look at the currency issues that are going on in Europe, for instance, or we look at a slowdown in growth in China, but they still look over the water and they still see the opportunities here, and they're pretty significant.
Yeah. Now, there's been some recent changes with FIRPTA, the Foreign Investment and Real Property Tax Act, which actually makes it even more favorable for foreign investors of some entities of foreign investors to invest in U.S. So does that mean we should expect more foreign investment in U.S., and might that impact values here?
Well, I think that actually with FIRPTA there was some hesitation because the outcome was unclear at one point, and so people were holding back. Now they have less reason, at least in that regard, to hold back, and they can look more aggressively or enthusiastically, as it were,
Yeah.
to U.S. assets. Absolutely.
Well, what would be your number one takeaway from this report this year, Peter, as a tip for our listeners and viewers?
What's interesting is, to me, as we put this together, it's really fascinating how intertwined all of these trends and themes are. You can't talk about retail without talking about the urban model. You can't talk about that without talking about the generations, the millennials and the boomers. You can't talk about investing in secondary, tertiary markets without talking about global capital entering the U.S. They're all intertwined. They all have an impact. It's worthwhile to keep an eye on everything that is going on in the world. It's not always easy, but it's important to do.
A good point. Peter, thanks for joining us today in Studio One. We appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
Great information. And we'll have a link to some information on the report. And be sure to visit their website at CRE.org. Again, incredible people belong to this organization. Do check it out. And you want to join us next week. We're going to have a show, and the title is Social Media for Business. We're going to have a social media expert. We talk about some different strategies that help you with social media. And if you don't think social media is important to your business, well, it is. So be sure and join us. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for the Commercial Real Estate Show. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty, Asset and Occupancy Solutions. Xceligent, building data everywhere. CCIM Institute, the industry's global standard for professional achievement. Valuate, easily share what-if analysis with colleagues online. And First Service Solutions, your CMBS borrower advocate. For more information on how these businesses may be of service to you, visit CREshow.com.